All right, let's go. All right, Matthews. How much did he make, Tim?
So he signed a 4-year, $53 million, which is $13.250 million a year.
That's not too bad.
I have to admit that I didn't think he'd sign. I have always said I thought he'd go somewhere else. I thought he didn't need this. You know, them always criticizing him during the playoffs and all that. And
I don't think he could afford him in Arizona right now, right?
They have the cap space, but I don't know if they have the money.
No, not with 5,000 people. Would they have 5,000?
5,000 people. Funny thing is, you know, everybody goes, they laugh at it, but if they came to me and said, Tim, you could go see the Leafs play on the road one place, where would you go? I'd say I'd want to go to Arizona to see the Leafs play in a 5,000 seat arena. Would be great.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
You know,
but you know what really makes me laugh is I think what was her name? Linda Eastwood.
Yes, because
what did she say? I think she said it the best.
Well, because I put it out on Twitter and I said, you know, what did people think? I said too much, just right, or too little. And it was about 50-50, but I think she came out with the best line. She said, if they don't make the playoffs, it's too much. If they make the playoffs, it's just right. If they win the cup, it's too little.
I still can't believe he scores goals like he scores. How does a guy from the desert learn how to score goals like that? It's beyond me. I just can't believe the goals he scored.
You know, though, Dad, you've said it more times. He could go get 60 goals, 70 goals, but if the Leafs get bounced out after the second round of the playoffs,
doesn't mean anything.
You know,
I said all year it doesn't mean anything if they win 7-1, if they beat some team, if they come in once a year and he gets 3 goals, it doesn't mean a thing. It's in the playoffs. It counts. The only place Boston Bruins will be known for the rest of their lives as the team that tore the league apart and died in the playoffs.
I think last year you and I were watching, and you said he's hurt. Like you just said, he's not shooting.
I think he is. I think he was hurt in the playoffs.
Yeah, you said he's just not shooting the puck like he did before.
No. But I think his wrist was bothering him.
Yeah, but I said when Gary Bettman's by himself and having a glass of wine or a beer, whatever he drinks, he thinks the two greatest players, we got to say Matthews and McDavid.
Yeah. Oh, they were. They are. They're the two best players.
And one's in Toronto and one's in Edmonton. You know, you look at like LeBron James is in L.A., Aaron Judge's in New York.
No, yeah, but imagine he was in Chicago or New York or Rangers.
And plus being an American too, right? Like that would really help the league.
Oh, yeah.
From what I was reading in the papers.
You know what makes me laugh, Tim, is when down in the States, say New Jersey, the announcers, and they say, and the guy he's from Mississauga or he's from Lethbridge, Alberta, or someplace like that.
Yeah.
And they say, and they give the impression that he's an American.
Oh yeah, if you went to college.
Yeah, and he went to college there, and he that really kills me when I listen to him, because I listen to the broadcasters pretty good.
Yeah, well, they promote, you know, the Americans. They do a good job. They promote the American players better, and
I don't blame them. They promote and here yesterday. I'm not knocking. Because I really liked both of them, Buck Martinez and
Dan Shulman.
And Dan Shulman. I knew Dan Shulman.
The two Canadian.
It was Romano and Bottle.
Yeah.
And they call it the Canadian Connection. I just thought if that was down in the States, they would make that the biggest thing in the world. Oh well, maybe it's just the Canadian Connection I got. I don't know why a guy wants to be the highest paid guy in the league, because if you don't produce, they can always say here's the highest paid guy in the league, but they all do it. So
yeah, well, McDavid's contract's up. He'll go 100,000 higher, or whatever. But do you know that, you know, not knocking the NHL, but just show you how much the other leagues are, that if his contract, Matthews' contract, and the NBA and Major League Baseball wouldn't even be in the top 100.
Well, yeah, but that's true. But they don't get 60,000 at the game like the baseball.
Yeah, but or they don't have the big television contract. I heard talking to some people when I was down in Dallas, and we were talking about the contract. They said that the NFL teams could play to empty stadiums and still make money.
Yeah, with TV
because of the TV. So, but you want to talk about the fighters, what they get?
Yeah.
Last week about UFC and how you couldn't watch it. A lot of people agreed with you. A lot of people said they can't watch the UFC. They can watch boxing, but they don't like watching the UFC.
Oh, yeah. Well.
So, McDavid got the big dough, and I thought, I wonder what those guys get fighting, because supposedly it's cheap, right? Like Dana White's cheap. Sterling, who was the champ, and O'Malley was the challenger. They started off with kind of like a basic salary, a basic purse. It was $750,000 for, which isn't bad. And then that was for the champ. And then they get a share of the pay-per-view. So the more people that watch, the more money they make.
Yeah.
But he ended up getting $700,000 from the pay-per-views. And then O'Malley, who was the challenger who won, he had $500,000 purse because he's challenger, right?
Challenger.
But he got if you win, you get $100,000 bonus. So there's $100,000 whoever wins, and then he got $50,000 for male fighter of the night, and he got seven. So he got about $1.38 million.
Well, they do, but they take an awful lot of punishment, Tim. Boy, when I just happened to tune in and see that guy take that right to the jaw.
Yeah.
I mean, they take an awful lot of punishment, and something happened to his eye.
Yeah, and the girl champ from China, Zhang Weili, she got $1.9 million. So they make, they don't. It's funny though how boxing. They make so much more than these guys.
Yeah.
Like that Fury's fighting that guy coming up. He'll make big dough, and I look to see
Well, it's a TV.
Well, Conor McGregor, when he fought that Khabib, he made about $40 million, but because of the pay-per-view, because there was over 2 million.
Why don't you keep going?
Yeah, he just keeps liking the fight, I guess. But good for Austin Matthews. Makes a lot of dough. Let's just fingers crossed that.
Well, he's got to do something in the playoffs.
Yeah, because it doesn't mean nothing in the regular season.
Well, he had a sore wrist last year. I'm positive he had a sore wrist.
Dadson, he's taking a day off today, but we'd still like to thank our sponsors, Spreads.ca. They're a Canadian loan online casino and sportsbook, and if you sign up now and use the promo GRAPES, they'll match your deposit up to $250. You get 10 spins on the big wheel, and if you get 3 of your jackets, you get some big dough. And then your first sports bet, they'll spot you $25. And right now, Austin Matthews is second to win the MVP.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, behind who, Conor McDavid. But he's second behind Conor McDavid.
Well, he's got an awful lot of pressure on him, I have to admit. And he doesn't seem to mind the pressure. He can come in here for 6 months and get out of here fast.
Yeah. Maybe he doesn't care what the Canadian press think.
Yeah, maybe he does. I never thought of that.
So, Dad, talking about contracts, I remember, I forget, it was in the mid, 75 or 70, it may have been 76. Bobby Orr was up for his contract.
Yeah.
And it was, talk about everybody wanting to know what was going on. But, and then he ended up, it just shocked people that he left for Chicago.
Bobby was injured. He had a bad knee. I remember he had a bad knee, but he'd never come down when the players were practicing. He'd always come down after they'd all left, and he was on the bike. And I was.
You were fixing one of my sticks.
I was fixing Middleton sticks. I was taking the best of Middleton sticks. I should have cared about it.
He did, because he came and said, "Hey, Grapes, you're taking all my good sticks," because back then they were wood, right? Some of the sticks were good, and some were bad,
but they were good sticks. So anyhow, I was working on them. I was working on the handle. So anyhow, I'm working on the stick there, and I'm working away there, and Bobby's at the far end of the dressing room, and I'm just working on.
What was he doing? Was he riding the bike or?
No, he was riding a bike. He was riding a bike and getting his knee in shape and everything like that for his knee. Mooney came in. I remember he's smoking a pipe. He didn't like me. He just nodded to me. And he went to the bar, and I could kind of listen. I was kind of listening. He said, Bobby, let me talk to you. He says, no, get away from me. He says, no, just let me just talk to you for a minute. He says, no, you're trying to drive a wedge between Al and I, Al Eagleson. And he says, no, I just want to talk to you. He says, no, get away from me. Don't talk to me. You know what they were going to offer him? They were going to offer him, and I know I've told this story before. They were going to offer him part of the Bruins.
Wow.
And I remember him walking out, turning around and walking out and shaking his head to me and looking at me and shaking his head and walked to the room. But they were going to offer him part of the Bruins.
Well,
I think
told you
18%.
Well, imagine what that'd be worth now.
That'd be worth today.
Wow.
Yeah, well, anyhow.
He should have told you to go talk to him.
I didn't know.
I said Mooney should have. They knew that you two were good friends.
No, we were sort of like.
Not you and Mooney.
I remember.
You and Bobby were friends.
Bobby and I were friends.
So they said, "Why wouldn't you get?" But
I don't know. They didn't want me to even get involved, I guess. Yeah. Anyhow, that's what they were going to offer him. Part of the salary was going to be part of the Bruins. I mean, can you imagine that?
Yeah,
it's hard to believe.
We'll talk about Bobby Orr. We'll talk about another great Boston Bruin defenseman. Marty Lycan from LinkedIn said, I heard the stories about Eddie Shore and how it could be suggested playing for him was like getting sent to Devil's Island.
It was.
Just well. I graciously make a request for more of your dad to recap on that.
But I will tell you one thing that I could never figure out, that he could do it. I mean, he could do it. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. 2-on-1. Now, everybody knows a 2-on-1, two forwards coming down on a defenseman. He stays in the middle. We were always taught that. Everybody, even when we left, we taught. He'd always say, go after the guy with the puck. How the hell can you go after the guy with the puck? He'd just drop it over. You couldn't talk him out of it.
Yeah.
A 2-on-1. And he'd say, go after the guy with the puck. Well, they used to do that in the practice. And then in the game, we played a 2-on-1.
So you just humored him in practice.
Yeah. It was his team in practice. So we go after the guy with 2-on-1, just drop it over and he'd go in and score. He never get upset.
So I got to ask you a question, Dad. There was a lot of stories about him being cheap. Was that true?
Oh, he was so cheap. I remember when I was played for Rochester, and he had a big blue car. I'll never forget the beautiful Cadillac he had. He had a beautiful Cadillac, monstrous Cadillac. And he wouldn't turn the lights on. He would not turn the lights on the arena till at 6 o'clock. So we had to sit. We got there one time. We had to sit there.
So you guys had to sit in the bus and wait
till he turned the lights on. And I remember Jimmy Pappin. Remember Jimmy Pappin?
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy Pappin. He said, just a minute, as he's walked by, and he went over and kicked the car in. Kicked the door in! Whoa. I couldn't believe it. I mean, Eddie Shore, I was still afraid of him. Not afraid of him, but whatever it was. And here he was, and here was Jimmy Pappin.
Was it you who told me the story? Was it true that the players were walking after practice and they heard his voice?
One time, one guy was in, he said, Mr. So-and-so. And he looked, he was hanging by the rafter. He was changing the light bulb of the arena, and he was hanging by the rafter. He said, would you please push that ladder back?
Oh, the ladder fell, and he was hanging by the girder.
He was on the ladder. And believe it or not, I mean, he was a cheap guy, but he had to work hard for his money, and I guess that's how he kept it. And he did buy the ice capades.
We got a request from Facebook. They'd like to know any stories you have. Player who played for you for a short time, Tommy Songden.
Tommy Songden, I remember him. We had 4 players. We had Bill Bennett, Tommy Songden, and 2 other guys. They were about 6'3". And I thought, well, if I'm going to have big guys waiting around, I'm going to have them. And so I remember, this is a funny story, or I think it's funny. We were in the playoffs, and we're staying at Le Moyne Manor or something like that. And we could walk to the arena. It was only a block away. And So we had a team meal that night. It wasn't a forced team meal. It was just we'd had a team meal that night. And I remember they were next to us here. And I remember the waiter called and he said, "Would you like a salad?" Well, they thought, a little salad go along with the meal. And the guy come up with a great big
No, it was like they made a Caesar salad by the table.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Flames and the whole deal. So and he says, "Holy I could hear them. I was listening." And they says, "Hey, what are we going to go do? I can't pay for this."
Well, they got the bill and it was.
Well, he says, I don't have the money. I said, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And I spread it amongst the guys. They had a big laugh about it. I picked up the meal.
Yeah, you get those Caesar salads and little 3 or 4 Cokes that they charge you. All of a sudden your bill's going to get up there. So I can imagine the per diem wasn't that big.
And the guy said he sounded like you want to come.
Yeah, didn't you say one time that Harry got mad at you because you used to pick up the players' breakfast? And the players got a per diem.
And I remember Harry when he said, "And don't pick up the breakfast for the players either. They get enough per diem." I think it was $71 at the time or something like that.
What was your per diem Eddie Shore gave you?
We didn't get it per diem. We got $4.
I got $1.50 or something like that. Brian Kilray said.
Yeah.
But we'll go back. We were talking about Tommy Songden, and I think he played right wing. But where was the guy? How was he going to get onto the Bruins?
I know. You had Cashman. You had Terry O'Reilly. You had Schmatzy. You had Middleton. Yeah. And they all got 30. They all got, some of them, 25, 30 goals. And where are you going to play? Anyhow, I worked, Tim, no, I worked them just as hard, and I stayed on the ice with them. And when everybody else had left, those 2 guys, and I remember the league or everything, they complained to the league that we went back and forth, back and forth so long that we were wearing down the side of the ice. And I said, you guys will be just as good shape if you get in there as the guys that are playing right now. You'll be just as in good shape.